Please like and subscribe to this podcast. And if you like what we're doing, leave us a good review or even share with somebody else. It helps us reach as many people as possible.
What really, really motivated me was looking in a mirror and seeing this thing looking back at me and realising that I would tramp over the top of anybody to get a drink. And that person scares the crap out of me.
Hi there, I'm Lou.
Hi, John.
Welcome to the Bottled Up podcast.
And today we're going to talk about why can't alcoholics recognise the problem?
Right, this is a conference. You realise we could have about 15 sessions on this. What the hell is going on? Okay, John, he's the drinker. If you not listened to these before, he's the one that was an alcoholic for years.
Yeah, I was an alcoholic for many years, and but I didn't have a problem as far as I was concerned.
Okay.
You know, the world had a problem, but I didn't have a problem. My wife had a problem, but I didn't have a problem.
Okay.
The only problem I had really was getting enough money and getting people to leave me alone. That's how I saw it. It was the world that had the problem and not me.
And how long did that last for?
Oh, it lasted for quite a long time. I mean, occasionally I felt that I blotted my copybook and really I had to do something about it. But that was only occasionally. Towards the end, I mean, I blamed everybody. I blamed the dog that I didn't have. I blamed my wife. I blamed my job. I blamed, the rain. It was Scotland after all, so I had plenty of rain to blame. So I just blamed anything and anybody, particularly my wife, because I used to say that if you had my wife, my life, you would drink as well. And that was it. Yeah, that was it. If she just left me alone, then I would drink like a gentleman. That was how I saw it.
Okay.
Then she left, and I decided that, yes, I would drink like a gentleman, and I did. For at least half an hour.
So as a wife,
Yes.
why did you hang on to this arrogant denial for so many years?
Well, I can see you're a good counsellor, yes.
But that's what it feels like. It
Yes.
feels like over here is just completely arrogant denial.
Yeah.
So what drove that? Did you realise it was denial?
No.
You didn't?
No, of course I didn't realise it's denial. But the very definition of denial is that you deny that you're denial, I believed that for a long time that alcohol was not a problem for me. Alcohol was a solution for me.
That's really interesting. So
Yes.
what does that mean?
Well, I talked about it in a previous podcast. I talked about how I felt invisible. I felt, I was shy. I had real difficulty mixing in company. But when I took on alcohol, then all of a sudden I was transformed. And I really didn't like this non-alcohol person. The person who had no alcohol on board just was a bit of a wimp. And he wasn't how I wanted to be. And do you ever watch Popeye, the cartoon? Well, alcohol was my spinach.
Right.
I drank that, all of a sudden, transformed. Great, So how is that a problem? How can alcohol be a problem if that's what it did to me? Alcohol for me was a medication. Alcohol for me was a transformation. So if people sort of started saying, actually, no, it's a problem, I would defend it. I'd defend it to the hilt. I defend it to the hilt because for me, it was life. It was, as I say, it made me the person I believed that I wanted to be.
So I know from your story that your first wife then began to get more and more agitated and more upset.
Yeah.
So in your head, what did you put that down to?
I put it down to neurosis.
Right, okay.
Well, I'd put it down to many things. But, felt that she was a bit straight-laced. I felt that she was a bit of a killjoy. When we first got together, I was very much a party animal. You know, I loved alcohol and drugs. And that was it. Alcohol, drugs, rock and roll. And away we went. And she came along and she had a different lifestyle and she wanted me to fit into that lifestyle. And
it domesticized you.
Yeah, I couldn't fit into her lifestyle. I mean, I tried, but you know, it didn't really work very well. You know, it was like painting a cat. I mean, the paint just doesn't stick. You know, that's about the size of it. You know, I'm really. So I just felt that I had to be free. You know. I do remember, you know, I'd been, you know, the hippie and, you know, the free spirit and all of that, you know, and alcohol allowed me to do that. It allowed me to be that free spirit as well. I had great courage when I was drinking, a great wisdom when I was drinking. For a while I was into sort of Eastern philosophy, and believe it or not, I felt that alcohol helped me meditate, you know. Especially when I was comatose with it, you know. But that's the way it was, you know. So yes, I would defend that.
Okay, what would you say to her now? Because you're a really different person now.
Oh, of course I am.
What
you know,
would you say to her?
Well, to be honest, before I answer that question, when I got sober, I realised that I had a bit of a problem. You know. That was how I saw it. I mean, I went to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, you know, and I sat at these Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, and people said, you know, my name's Tom, I'm an alcoholic. My name's James, and I'm an alcoholic. And I couldn't say that because I wasn't an alcoholic. I wasn't a real alcoholic. And I would sit there and say, my name's John, and my wife seems to think I'm an alcoholic. She seems to think I've got a problem. That was as far as I could go. Eventually, when I did get sober, I looked back and I said, okay, I probably had a problem the last couple of years. And then I was a wee bit longer sober, and then I said, well, maybe it was 5 years. And then I got a wee bit longer sober, and then maybe it's 10 years. Maybe. And then eventually I realised I'm not sure that I ever drank normally.
Okay. So what would you say? Because we're going to cover your story.
Yeah, I would. What I'll say is I was in this pub in Glasgow with a crowd of what I saw as old men at that time. They were about 40. And I was a teenager. And they're all sitting talking about how they felt the next day, talking about hangovers and things like that. You know? And this one was going, oh, my head's down the pan, you know, I'm really sick. Another one, I can't actually get out of bed. Another one, my head really hurts. And they came to me and I said, I just don't feel real. And this old guy looked at me and he said, you've got a problem, son. I said, I've got a problem. You're the one with your head down the toilet pan, you know, how have I got a problem? I thought, no, it's nothing. But looking back in it, I think it's true. Because I went to an AA meeting and again, I was not looking for anybody. They talk about getting, the identification sitting in these meetings. And I was getting all the identification that I wanted. Was absolutely none. None. You know, the people were talking about doing terrible things, and I was sitting going, no, not done that, not done that, not done that. And then one of them came away with this statement, and it hit me right between the eyes. And it was, when I discovered alcohol, I found the bit that God had left out. And I just went, wow. Because that, for me, was like a revelation. And that's what it felt like. It felt like when I discovered alcohol, I found this elixir of life. You know, I wouldn't have rationalized it or verbalized it that way at that time. But the longer I was sober, the more I realized, yes, it had always been like that for me. Alcohol had been this transformative substance. And it changed the way I thought about me. It changed the way I felt about me. Yeah.
Right. Now, this is for people who are not drinking, and I'm, partners of drinkers. And they might be thinking, well, that's all very well for you, John.
Yeah, of course they
you
would.
had some, so to get back to my question, okay?
Yes.
Now you look at it through the lens of reality. What would you say to your first wife?
Well, what I can say, and I've done this in two different ways. I've written an article which saying an alcoholic apologizes. And I've also done a video where I talk straight to camera, an alcoholic apologizes. And that's what I would do. I looked back, and what I said in this video was that I was never a violent man, but I terrorized my wife. I was never a philanderer, but every woman I saw was fair game in my head. I was never a thief, but I stole money out of her purse. I stole money out I bounced checks all over Glasgow. I did all of that. I was never a liar, but I lied all the time when it was talking about drink, And I can only say that, I'm ashamed that I did any of that. And I look back in it now and I think, whoa, because I've been a long, long time sober now. I've been much longer sober actually than I drank, And I look at myself now and I look at myself then and I think, how could I have possibly done that? It's inconceivable at this point.
When you talk about it, and I've been married to you for 17 years,
Yeah.
now you talk about the behaviour.
Yeah.
I recognise it in my first husband.
Yeah.
But yes, it's very different to the person that I know you.
Absolutely.
So what is it you say? You take a drink and then the drink takes you. So that was very true.
Well,
to you.
it's...
Yes, it.
Yeah.
Really.
A man takes a drink, the drink takes a drink, and the drink takes a man. That's the say.
So by the time the drink takes the man,
Yeah.
you've just explained something going on in your head, which is completely unrelated to what's going on around you. Is that fair?
Yeah. Alcohol rules. I woke up in the morning. If I was on a binge, I woke up in the morning and the first thing I would do is, I will talk about this in more detail, but the first thing I would do is think, where can I get a drink? And sometimes there was beer left over from the night before, and I would stand in front of the fire, the gas fire. I would stand in front of it naked because there wasn't any point in me getting dressed because I sweated so much trying to force down a drink. And then I would throw up. I would be sick. But I still tried to force it down. Why? Because the fear of not having a drink was worse than the illness. It's worse than the sickness. That's what it was like.
So that drink really becomes your protector, holds you together.
It gave me a lot and it took away a lot. But later on, I needed a drink. I needed a drink badly.
So it kept the nightmares at bay,
Yeah.
feeling.
I had huge anxiety. It didn't help it, the fact that I had blackouts. But blackouts, what they mean is that you're actually functioning, but you can't remember anything. It's like somebody just wiped the record. So I would walk into a pub the next day and I'm looking at people and I don't know whether they're going to growl at me or smile at me because I don't know what happened. And sometimes people were not very happy with me. As I said before, I was assaulted in quite a few pubs.
Well, looking back, because you said when you stayed in AA longer and longer, you realised it went back a long, long way.
Oh, yeah.
So do you feel when you first started drinking that it became a medication for issues that you already had?
Yes, but I wouldn't have said that at the time. I didn't have that insight at that time.
But we're looking back now.
Yes, looking back now, absolutely, it did.
Yes.
As I said earlier, it was the bit that God had left out as far as I was concerned. It was the missing piece of my puzzle. It was a liquid personality. That's what it was,
And it makes it quite difficult to treat, because then you end up with two issues, one on top of each other. You often enjoy, you start drinking and without even realizing it, you medicate some not very nice feelings within yourself.
Absolutely.
Then the drink itself becomes a problem. So you have to deal with the drink first, don't you, usually, and then...
Yes, I mean, there is a school of thought that says, you need to deal with the issues before you deal with the drink. But it's the wrong way around. You can't deal with the issues. It's like you're trying to deal with a psychological issue while you're under an anaesthetic. Because alcohol is it's a mind-altering drug.
Yeah.
So you can't work your way through the issues when you're, as I say, under a mind-altering drug. So
there may be people out there who have actually done this successfully. We don't want to be kind of black and white, but that's just kind of from where we're coming from. We've not really seen a lot of that, have we really? Because still
no, I mean, I would dispute.
You mean the professor here?
Yes, I would dispute it, because I think there's people want to do it, but they don't. They can't,
Okay, so what you're describing here is someone who needs the drink to keep themselves intact.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, why? Tell me about the lying. I mean, so this really, really hits us. I mean, I used to say to my husband, if you should just not lie, if you just come and say you were drunk,
okay,
but why are you lying? So,
okay.
Yeah.
There are two different types of lies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? There are the lies that you tell to other people, and there's the lies that you tell to yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And the lies that you tell to other people, well, I would say to my wife, I'm going out and I'm going to go for a pint. And when I come back and I'm obviously sozzled. How much did you have? I only had a couple.
Okay, that's the lies to your wife.
That was the lies to my wife. Why? Because I'm trying to avoid trouble.
Yeah.
So I'm doing it for her sake. You see?
Is that what you're telling yourself?
That's part of what I'm telling myself. Yes, I'm doing it for her sake. She'll thank me for it.
Yeah.
She didn't, surprisingly. And then there's the lies that you tell to yourself. Okay, that's it. I'm finishing there. That's the last. But you mean these ones?
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. Not all the lies are lies.
Well,
some of them, you really, really mean it. And when I used to say to my wife, that's it, I've stopped drinking.
At that moment.
At that moment in time, I believed it totally. Yes, of course I've stopped. That's it. In fact, I used to have farewell to alcohol parties. So tomorrow I'm stopping drinking, so I'm going to get pissed tonight. And that's what I would do. And of course, I'd wake up the next day and I had a hangover and I needed a drink. But I really, really meant it. I did. I mean it.
It's important, actually, because I've been the wife, really, if somebody said, after about 4 years, if my partner said that to me, I used to mutter under my breath, or I might even say it to his face, I believe that when I see it. And I didn't realize, I don't know that was an appropriate response. I understand why I did it, but actually, if I'd have maybe run with that feeling that was really meant at that time, we may have been able to get somewhere. But because I've been let down so many times and my trust had been absolutely shattered, that was a hard thing to do. Can I say something here, though, because I think it's really, really important. My husband was a pretty honest man until drink was involved, okay? And then he'd lie through his teeth on a very regular basis. But what I found was happening is that the trust in that area, I began to say to myself things like, I will never trust you again. And thereby implying, in my anger, that everything that my husband was doing was not trustworthy. And that was not at all the truth. In fact, I think that, to be honest with you, learning who we can trust for what is something that we need to learn in life. And I wouldn't trust my mechanic with my deepest secrets, and I wouldn't trust my friend with my car to mend. Okay? So we learn that we must, some people we can rely on for some things and some not. Yeah. And I think if you're living with a drinker, don't let that pervasive, my trust is completely shattered. It may feel like it that at the end, but at the moment, if your drinker is just lying when he drinks, your trust in the drink arena has been completely shattered. Don't let that trust and that trauma that you're going through become bigger by mistake, because that's going to make your pain even worse.
I think that's important. I mean, I would say to my wife, I'm giving up drinking, and she would just look at me and go, yeah. No, looking back now, I cannot fault her at all. But I was outraged. Why doesn't she believe me?
That's another issue.
Well, there's all these other times that you didn't.
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah, we were dealing that a bit later on about recovery, because that really becomes an issue when they kind of give up drinking. So there's the lie. The question that people say to us quite regularly, why don't they just stop? Why don't they stop when they see the chaos that they're causing to their loved ones? This is a really kind of interesting one. And we are going to do a whole podcast on this, because we want you to come along and to listen to the one that says, stop doing things that don't work. And this is all about you. And it's about you coming out with things that are absolutely intuitively correct and absolutely what you should be doing in any other arena other than in the drinks arena.
Yeah.
And so you will be appealing to them to stop. You will be appealing on the love that you clearly have with each other. And you will be thinking, if they love me, why don't you stop? Actually, what you're doing at that point is pushing the most powerful button in their heart. And that is deep shame. And that is one of the main triggers that send them.
Yeah, and I think that's one that we'll talk about some depth. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's why, isn't it? It's not as simple as why don't they stop? Yeah.
Well, there are a number of reasons why they don't stop. One of the reasons why they don't stop is, as I said, is the medication aspect of it. And that takes us back to denial. And do I have a problem? No, I don't really have a problem. I have this problem with the way I see myself. But my problem's not the alcohol. The problem's how I see myself. And therefore, if that was okay, then I wouldn't need to drink. And that's the way I rationalize it, So if I can just have this alcohol, then I'll be fine, And if I could just, here's a bit of alcoholic logic, I spent a while not selling double glazing. I was told, I went for an aptitude test about could I be a salesman, and the aptitude test said no. In fact, the guy was quite blunt about it. He said, whatever job you do, don't be a salesman. You're hopeless. And I thought, well, I'll prove him wrong. So off I went. And I spent a while not selling double glazing. I was really not very good at it. I was really good at making appointments. But I was hopeless when it came to asking for money. However, I discovered the secret. I had a couple of pints. And I went round and I sold some double glazing. So here's where the alcoholic logic kicks in. If with a couple of pints I can sell a wee bit of double glazing, then if I have more, I'll sell a lot of double glazing.
I can see it.
Can you see the flaw in this logic?
I can see you must have lost your job.
Yes, nobody would let me in their house to sell them double glazing after that. But that was the logic.
Yeah.
And I'm a reasonably intelligent person, but still. That's
your brain then really just has a completely different thought process of its own that does not make much rational sense to us.
It's almost as if it's compartmentalized. I can be rational, I can look at the world, I can interpret the world quite well, I can go and I can do courses and I can do that well. But this part of my brain goes, no, we reserve this strange thinking just for this substance.
Okay, final question.
And very much protecting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the final question, the most painful question of them all, as a partner of an alcoholic, don't they then love the alcohol more than they love me?
Yeah, that's a really painful question. And I can absolutely see why you would think that. It's not as simple as that. But it's quite easy to see how you might think that. My wife said to me, if you love me, then you will. And she's said that on a number of occasions. And Obviously, I didn't. And so she came to that conclusion. Obviously, I love alcohol more than her. The truth of the matter is that it's not the one question. There's two different questions here, because I did love her. And I really, really didn't want to hurt her. Mm. But myself, I didn't want to hurt. And when I didn't have alcohol, I hurt. And that's where it got down to. It's not that I didn't love her, and it's not that I loved alcohol more than her. It was just I didn't want to hurt. Mm. I really did not want to hurt.
So by then you were having a relationship with the drink more powerfully than you were having a relationship with her.
I wasn't even having a relationship with the alcohol anymore. And in the middle of a binge, you got to understand that when I started drinking in a binge, then it was pleasure. Mm. Walking into a pub, into that atmosphere and picking up a drink and putting it down, there was pleasure. There was a lovely, lovely feeling to that. 2 weeks into a binge, it wasn't like that. 2 weeks into a binge, there was no pleasure involved. It would only taken away pain. All it was doing was removing the bad feelings. That's all it was doing. It was an anesthetic now. Mm. There was no pleasure involved in it. There was no love involved in it. I was caught in this web of addiction. And it is, you are caught in the web of addiction. If I don't have a drink and go back to that standing in front of the fire with sweat pouring off me, terrified, absolutely terrified. I remember getting on a bus going into Glasgow and I couldn't cope with it because I hadn't had a drink. And I looked around this bus and somebody looked at me. And I had to get off the bus because I was having a panic attack. Mm. And I went straight into a pub and had a drink and started to feel okay again. Mm. And that's the way it was.
So by then, really, the fact that you loved your wife or your wife loved you was a bit of a moot point. You were in survival mode.
It was a moot point, yeah. That's it in a nutshell. I was in survival mode. It wasn't a case I didn't love her, and it certainly wasn't a case that I loved alcohol more than her. I needed the alcohol. Mm-hmm. I needed the alcohol. And it's sad to say it. And I look back now and I think, whoa, how did I not get through all of that? But I did.
Some people have said to me, and I really resonate with what they say, that drink becomes like a mistress, a very demanding mistress that won't be denied. Like the other woman, people have kind of called it that, haven't they?
Yeah, but it's even more than that. It's more like a slave owner. Right. Yeah, it's because it drives you. And you don't always want to be driven. Okay. But it doesn't matter. It kind of takes over your brain and it does your thinking for you. Mm. You know, that's kind of what happens.
So if you're listening to this, now you may by now have got to the anger bit because you might be thinking, well, I don't want to hear about this, and you don't want to hear the alcoholic has feelings or is going through it at all because they've smashed up your life. And the purpose is not actually for that. One of the things that was really useful to me when I met John was that he began to explain to me what was going on the other side of this dance that was going on. And I would have given anything for my first time in a tour, but articulated what you've just articulated now, because I made a lot of assumptions that actually weren't true. Mm-hmm. I made assumptions that my husband didn't care, and he cared very, very much. Yeah. And so,
sure he did.
But the other really encouraging thing about you talking about all of this is this is the person that actually got sober and ended up, as somebody said, went from a drunk to a doctor in a decade. And we want to tell people there is hope.
Yeah.
There really is hope. Yeah. And, you know, so take home point, why can't the alcohol recognize his problem? Because the problem drinker, alcohol is not the problem, but the solution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is a solution, and that's very difficult to understand for people who have not been an alcoholic. To answer it a wee bit, you used to smoke, and if you didn't have a cigarette, what was it like?
Yeah, I just had lots of pangs and cravings and just smoking it.
Can I magnify that? and that's what the alcohol craving is like. It's really rather awful. First of all, we don't recognize it because we don't feel that we have a problem. It's more of a solution. It's the solution to a deficit that they feel. For me, it was about shyness. It was about introversion. It was about just very, very low self-esteem. It was for all of that. It made me feel like a hero rather than a failure. Looking at it now, obviously, it was rotting my brain, but at that time, it was the solution, and that's how I saw it.
So the problem actually is not in you, it's the person that happens to be around the behaviour that you're doing.
Yes.
Really.
And second, we don't recognise it because if you recognise that you might have to do something about it.
Yeah.
And you really don't want to have to do something about it.
Yeah, so much of what is done is designed to protect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The love of the drink is completely different to the love of you. It feels very, very personal, but the drink is in his own.
Of course, it feels personal, and it is personal. It is personal hurt over there, but it's not personal over here. It's a person that I don't want to hurt. And if you take my alcohol away, I'll hurt.
Yeah.
So I'm hurt, you're hurt, we're hurt, It's a tragedy. I'm not trying to make excuses here because I don't. I've never made excuses since I got sober. I did it. And nobody else forced it down my throat. I did it. I did it to myself. I did it to myself because there was a deficit and alcohol filled that deficit.
And finally, the lies often can happen in otherwise truthful situations, and they're designed.
Yep.
You might lie to work for the same reason, but it's to protect your drink and protect yourself getting to the point where you might have to look yourself in the eye and do something about it. So that's the most terrifying thing for the drinker, isn't it? To be without his drink.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah. Many people have asked me, why did you stop drinking? And I say to them, well, I was in an alcohol unit. I was in a psychiatric unit. I was told I had brain damage, liver damage, and if I continued to drink or take drugs, I would be dead in 6 months. And they go, oh, right, so that's why you stopped. They go, no, it's not why I stopped. Because death didn't scare me. In fact, there was a time when I would have welcomed death. What really, really motivated me was looking in a mirror and seeing this thing looking back at me and realizing that I would tramp over the top of anybody to get a drink. That I was selfish, self-centered, and totally without any kind of feeling for anybody else when I was caught in the throes of alcoholism. And that's what stopped me. What stopped me going back was that I didn't want to go back to that person again. And that person scares the crap out of me. And he keeps me sober.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And very lovely he is too.
So I don't want to go back to that person. I don't want to go back to the person that Sandra had to get married to. I really don't.
Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Come and join us again soon.
If you want more information, you can find it at bottled-up.com. You'll find lots of videos. You'll find the video of me saying I'm sorry. And you'll find lots of videos of Lou talking as well about her experience. But you'll find lots of information that may help you.
Yeah. So, and a full program that you can go through. Again, all online. So it's you can do it without anybody knowing you're doing it, which is really quite important for most people.
Private.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to you joining us again soon. Bye.
Okay. Bye.